Hello, beautiful souls. It's Heather Leigh Strom coming at you for another exciting episode of Howling at the Moon. Today we have a really special guest, Dr. Sandra Robinson, a friend of mine and an incredible energy worker, Reiki master. I can't wait for you to meet her. She is the founder of Wild Soul Gatherings and the host of Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast, which is a great podcast. She is passionate and excited about this lifetime, especially about the role we all get to play in this evolution of humanity. Sandra has lived a life of service, moving from her nursing path to a path to support and mentor others on their unique spiritual journey. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. Our discussion is going to be focused around how beginners can get started in their spiritual quest.
Welcome to Howling at the Moon, where the mystical meets the practical, and the canine spirit guides lead the way. I'm your host, Heather Leigh Strom. In 2022, I experienced a sudden, life-changing spiritual awakening. After a lifetime of struggling with, who am I and why am I here? For 5 decades, the world felt cold and confusing. Now I see the patterns, the purpose, and the bigger magical picture. My mission? To help you find your way through your own awakening journey. Here, you'll discover limitless possibilities for spiritual growth, powerful healing frequencies, and extraordinary energetic professionals, each designed to guide you into deeper healing and remembrance. Some episodes feature enlightening wisdom from spiritually evolved guest healers, visionaries, and authors. Others are led by the multidimensional canine spirit guides themselves, sharing their unique intergalactic wisdom and frequency. If you've been craving deeper truth, multidimensional healing, and a little cosmic magic, you've just found your pack. Listen and watch on Spotify or YouTube and bring the magic back into your life.
So without further ado, let's meet Dr. Sandra Marie. Hi, Sandra.
Hey, how you doing, Heather Leigh?
All right. Well, so let's start with how you came into your path and your purpose.
I would honestly say that I've been a curious by nature since childhood. I was raised Catholic, went to a Catholic school for 8 years. I wouldn't say that I was raised in a religious home, but the whole Catholic thing was a big part of it. And even as a child, I realized that the dogmas and the supporting evidence, it just didn't add up for me. Like, was God really loving and forgiving, or was he punitive and punishing, constantly watching me, and ready to punish me at any moment? I stepped away. But when I had my own children, I got back into religion. My husband at the time and I were raised in different faiths. We settled on Lutheran, which honestly is not much different than being raised in the Catholic religion. But at the time, I'll be honest with you, I just thought it was what I was supposed to do. Like, I thought that as a parent, this was a behavior that I was supposed to do and provide for my children. And retrospectively, looking back at it, what I realized was I was living someone else's beliefs, someone else's belief system, and really not my belief system. And I would say in my late 30s or 40s, all that being a sheep with religion, that's what it felt like to me. I started opening up myself to other opportunities. And then there was one morning I woke up with a very clear telepathic message that I was to become a Reiki master, which really sort of threw me. I was like, gosh, was that just a vivid dream? Was that real? Am I hearing voices? And it was like, no, it was real. And I was really just sort of focused on the clarity of the words. Very compelled. I tried to step away from it. It went on for probably a year before I figured out what Reiki was, what a Reiki master was. It was before the internet was big and you could just Google Reiki or Reiki master. I would say that honestly, receiving that message was a little concerning to me. So I've worked 45 years in healthcare as a nurse, mostly in EDs, but I did have a stint working in psych behavioral health. So getting a message, hearing voices, that sort of thing was a little bit of a dilemma for me, but not, because I also had worked with mediums that talked to loved ones. So when we would get people admitted because their mother was coming to them and giving them messages who had just passed, and we're medicating them, I was sort of like, well, I feel perhaps maybe their mother who just passed really is communicating with them. But that, honestly, Heather Leigh, that could be a whole different show for us to talk about.
Yeah.
I then had the opportunity really to go live internationally, and that was a huge shift. It was a huge shift for me personally. It was a huge shift in my personal life. But I was able to do a lot of traveling to places like Nepal and Sri Lanka that has hundreds of thousands of years of spirituality, different temples. I was able to go to Tibet. Interesting. I went by myself. The people on this trip were talking about how hard it was to get a visa. The one fellow said he had been trying for 10 years. The other lady said she had tried for 6 years. They had all tried multiple times for this visa. There's 6 of us on there. I'm just listening to them, and they says, well, what about you? And I says, well, I had 2 weeks off, and I reached out to this fella who arranged it, and I got my visa. It took me 2 weeks. They didn't receive that very positively, but that just tells me it was something that I was meant to do. Yeah. I went to Bangladesh. They were having some big spiritual ceremony there. It was a big Hindu celebration weekend for 3 days. It was incredible. So I was always seeking. I mean, I was just immersing myself in seeking. After each trip, I'd come home and I'd come to the same conclusion. I would reach out to some like-minded friends, and I said, all this spiritual stuff is the same. It's no different. All these principles are the same. And even when I think about Catholicism, if I look at the purity of the teachings in Yeshua, it's still all the same. So I say this really sincerely. My aha moment was Glinda the Good Witch from Wizard of Oz. She had it right when she told Dorothy, my dear, you've always had the power to go home. So for me, returning home is returning to our divine, moving from this game of amnesia, from this earth game that we're playing. And Here I am with you, Heather Leigh, immersed in podcasts, wild soul gatherings, having discussions about canines, galactic dogs, elevating consciousness on the world, healing people. How did we get here? How did this all happen?
Yeah, that's a story, isn't it? And it happens faster than you would think.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing for me. And it's even really interesting how we connected. Somehow we connected and ended up doing an episode together for the happy hour for the spiritually curious.
Yeah.
Which I will say was another very clear message from Spirit. And unlike my initial messages that I was cognizant of from decades before, this one was not happy about. I was like, a podcast, no, cannot do this. Not in my skill set, not technologically signed, don't understand it. I don't honestly listen to podcasts at that time. So it was a whole new thing. Yeah. So after probably about 3 days of having an adult temper tantrum with Spirit, I succumbed, because I'm not going to lie to you. I had some pretty significant kicks in the asses because I didn't want to follow messages that were given. Yeah. And, Spirit has a way of getting you back in line one way or the other. Attention. So this one I was like, fine, I'll do it. And you know what's crazy? this has become a huge passion. Like, I figured it out. I love it. I feel like this is my path in life. Like, who would have thought? Like, I wouldn't have thought that, but it is. Yeah. We get connected and we have some other unique connection. But the one thing I'd like, for the listeners to hear is it was a little bit different with you. I have a lot of episodes out. I do a lot of research about the guests and their work. I usually will, sample their work if they have some free things on their website or whatever. Yeah. So I sampled your work, and then I got into your podcast, Howl at the Moon, which I told you, I think when we talked, I love the name because I have this real native pool. I worked on reservations as a nurse in the past.
Yeah.
I've had Howl at the Moon artwork all over my house at one point. And here I am. And I was like, wow, that's a great podcast name. Will you do some healing, different things on some of these podcasts? So, yeah. I'm just like going through, sampling, listening. 3 days later, it's about a couple hours before we're going to tape the show. I'm like, damn, I don't have any questions for this lady because I just got sucked into her work, because the energy for me personally felt so good. I can't explain it to you. I don't understand your work. I don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll expound on it a little bit. All I know was it had a profound effect on me that was like massively positive. So then real quickly, I was pulling my note cards, putting down my questions so that we could have a good conversation. And I think that's part of why the podcast was so successful, was a lot of the conversation was really off the cuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here you are in your new path, and everyone, the beginners who haven't journeyed to their calling, to their awakening, are always stuck at this place where they just can't get started. Maybe they're going down the wrong path, or they're working with the wrong people, or they haven't started with themselves. And so what words of wisdom would you have for these people who are just stuck in a rut and can't get out of the circle?
So we're doing this summit coming up July 11th and 12th. It's called Spirituality Explained. And honestly, that question is what led to doing this summit. My initial statement to that, Heather Leigh, there's this old way of manifesting where we come up with picking what it is we want, and then we try to force the universe into providing us. And you can be successful with that, the storyboards, the pictures, picking what you want. Well, a lot of times what we think may be best for us may not be the best thing to be picked for us.
Right.
So if we step away from this old way of manifesting into this flow, I like to call it the flow. Mm-hmm. We get these nudges. Be open to the nudges, even when it's uncomfortable or seems like, what the hell is this all about? And what do you want me to do? Like, be open to it and sort of go with it and see where it goes. See where it's going to take you. Universe is going to take us to what's going to serve us best.
And we may not know what that is. And that's why it's so important, like you say, to not try and control it. So really, if you're going to manifest something, what you want to do is just open up your energy field to your highest and greatest purpose and direction. And you may not know what that's going to be. It may be something completely different than what you expect. So if you're implanting what you want to happen, what you expect to happen, that may be a no-go. That might be a dead end. And so that's what discourages a lot of people, I think, is that they're trying to force themselves into a direction that's not for their highest and greatest good. And just like you say, we have to be open to the possibilities that we can't even see. I never thought I would be writing a book and doing podcasts. I mean, never.
Canine Spirit Guides, The Healing Power of Man's Best Friend by Heather Leigh Strom. We've always suspected dogs are magical angels from God. In this groundbreaking book, you'll discover the specific divine gifts our canine companions really possess as they facilitate our healing, elevate our awareness, and expand our consciousness. Man's best friend has their own spirit guides, which is why they appear in our lives just when we need them most. This award-winning book, Canine Spirit Guides, The Healing Power of Man's Best Friend by Heather Leigh Strom, is available on Amazon.com and HeatherLeighStrom.com. Get your copy today and begin your journey.
Oh, I hear you.
So, yeah, that's a very good point. We have to be open enough to realize that we don't know the answer.
Yeah, and I mean it's an honest thing to do, right? Because there's a lot of teaching out there. There's a lot of YouTubes. You have, and I'm not Abraham Hicks, all these channelers, their work is powerful. It means a lot, but that sort of is a direction that we were sent. I honestly feel like with that solar eclipse that happened in April, that the sun, the solar system is bringing in a higher vibrational light into the earth. Yeah. And I feel like the old light, that their dimensional light was turned off. So I guess I would encourage people to be open to the possibility that even when it comes to spirituality and our evolving consciousness, there's some changes that are happening here on Earth. So we have a whole different vibrational energy. I believe that everyone has been awakened. Some people are just conscious of it and some are unconscious of it. So we have a lot of folks out there seeking, like they're feeling things. They're getting the sense of knowing, their intuition is intensifying. So they have a lot of questions, right? There's a lot of questions about all of this. And it's time sort of for us to step up the game. Right. Again, that's what the spirituality explained when we were talking about there, because even though everyone's awakened, as we said earlier, there's so many different roads to our evolving consciousness. What's going to resonate with one person may not resonate for the next. And truly, that is the purity of happy hour for the spiritually curious. Like, we have no skin in the game. Yeah. We have no revenue in the game. The idea is just to meet a bunch of people out there who are doing different spiritual offerings, different work, different opportunities, putting it out there to expose people to it. And either you're going to resonate with it or you're not. Right. The other thing that I think is really important with this summit that we're doing is we're doing a thing called decoding spiritual terms. I know you and I laughed. You were talking about your experience with holding space. Mine's with current. Like, you, even though we're doing this, like, I would hear people talk about things and I'd be like, oh, yeah. But in reality, I wasn't exactly sure what they were talking about. Yeah. I sort of went with the flow. I'm like, okay, doesn't really make sense. Now it's like, oh, it makes a lot of sense, but it took me like a year to figure it out. Yeah. So we're going to have some conversation about decoding the different spiritual terms. As we're entering this new world, we really are going to start developing a new language for this new paradigm. You know, there are different terms, there are different words. What does this mean? How does this all work? The other thing that I think is really important is we're going to do a lot of work. There's three perspectives or three elements to this that I think are really impactful, is demystifying energy work, demystifying the taboo topics, demystifying the tarot, demystifying spiritual ceremony, demystifying spiritual altars. I don't know. I know for me personally, when I was doing my Reiki stuff initially, and they were talking about altars And like all of that Catholic stuff started coming up, and man, I felt like really uncomfortable. I'm like, I
Did you
don't
get
think
triggered?
it exists, but I feel like, is something bad going to happen to me? Because like, is this sacrilegious? Like, that's a lot of stuff, especially when you grow up with it as a child. It's still tucked in the background for some of us, and it's hard. The whole crystal, like, I'm obsessed with crystals, always have been. Even my mom, like, she went on the one trip of her whole life. She went to Hawaii, and she was emptying out her pockets of all these rocks when she came back. And she's like, you weren't supposed to take these, but look at what I got. And she was so excited. And I thought, even as a kid, I love the crystals. I mean, I shared with you earlier, as we were getting started, that I had 2 crystals that wanted to be with me as we were recording the show. So I always have crystals with me when I record.
What are they?
First of all, to keep my hands from flailing all over the place, because apparently I talk a lot with my hands, and when I'm editing, it doesn't look so pretty. But I have my usual, and today I had 2 different ones that wanted to join. I mean, they're living energy, living entities that bring a lot. So
what crystals?
Citrine. So it's citrine, which is a happy energy. And the other is a black tourmaline, which is more a protection type of energy.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I don't think it's protection from you. I told you I had some incidences going on the farm this morning. So I think it was separating out your farm life type of energy. And then the citrine was to bring in the joy, the happiness, and the fun of it all.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
It's interesting with healthcare. I really dedicated my life to one path of service for 45 years. I know you have a little bit of healthcare background.
Yeah, and only 30 years.
Okay. But I mean, it's a dedication. It's a service. It consumes you. And it's like stepping off of that path of service onto the service of raising the consciousness of humanity, which is all of us humans and everyone else. Yeah. It looks a little different, but it's the same commitment. But I do want to say to anyone who is really put themselves and committed themselves to service, it's got to be a 50-50. 100% commitment to service to yourself personally is equally as important to 100% of service to others. So
absolutely
big concept that's not so big, but simple, but especially for those of us who work in healthcare.
Yes.
Not a concept that seems so obvious until after the fact for many of us.
Till after you're broken. So you brought up a couple of really great points. I love the 50-50 because sometimes we forget that when we're working in service, we have to also receive for ourselves. We have to also keep going on our journey. We're constantly growing, healing, and elevating our frequency. And I think for me, I never want to work with a provider that's not doing that. I want to work with that authentic spiritual person that understands this concept. If they're not working on themselves, if they think they've already gotten to that point, it's not going to be a good match for me. I need someone actively growing and learning and continuing their craft. Even though I'm doing healing work with my clients, I always have a mentor for myself. I'm always looking for that next level, trying to get even higher and higher and higher. And that brings in a greater channel for me. So that's something I want to be sure and mention for those who are looking for someone to work with. It's very important for me that those professionals are doing their own work.
And honestly, when you're working with people, it's a give and take, right? So it's not just, especially those of us who do energy healing work, that kind of thing. You receive just as much you give.
Yes.
And it's all part of your elevation in your consciousness. I think that that's really important for people to know.
Yeah. And then, as a provider, even, I pay close attention to what's coming through for my clients, because there's always a message in that for me too. A part of that is for me. So I'm listening carefully when I'm getting channeled frequencies in for my clients, because part of that is something that I need. So it's important to realize our own part in the process. It's
So
a co-creation.
It is co-creation. And I'm going to
Yeah.
throw something out there. When we did our show, you said that healing is easy and it's not work. And honestly, that has struck such a chord for me. And I think it's really important. And, you know, you mentioned you're a survivor, and many people out there, and honestly, I think that everyone has trauma in their life, and how it's affected their life is unique and different for everyone. And historically, you know, it's about going to therapy, or there's a lot of self-help groups, and, you know, especially when you get into the substance abuse, you know, you have AA, and then you have the support groups for the families and those kinds of things. So I'm just going to ask, with everything changing, and I don't mean any disrespect, this is truly just a curiosity on my part.
Yeah.
So we know that where we have our intentions, but where we put our attention is what we create.
Yes.
So as I have evolved, I'm thinking, well, you're putting all your attention on all this past trauma.
Yes.
So are we just recreating all this trauma?
Yes.
And as we're evolving, do we need to be healing this trauma in a very different way? I mean, I know you have to, well, I don't know anything, to be honest with you. Do you have to acknowledge it? And then are you able to just be done with it? Or do we need to be spending years of reliving this over and over and over? Like, there's so many people who so very much want to be done with it.
Yeah.
You know, we live in you know, healthcare is big money. So it's a big industry, and there's a lot of people making a lot of high dollars from it. That's why, from my perspective, you know,
our society
get me in
is
trouble. Like, you're not going to see energy work covered by health insurance because people aren't making money on it, because you can heal people.
Yeah. Our society has done it backwards for so long. And I discuss this in my book, in Canine Spirit Guides, because I discovered that through my healing process with the Canine Spirit Guides while I was writing their book. Throughout my entire life, up to the point where I wrote the book, when something bothered me, I would spend so much time thinking about it, trying to figure out what it meant, how I could have done it differently, what if scenarios, you know, just constantly. I even formatted my career to help me try and figure my past out. So I became a pediatric physical therapist so I could study family interaction. What does a real family look like? Because I had no idea.
Wow.
So I was really invested in trying to figure it out, right? And this is kind of the premise of traditional therapy. You go in and you talk as much as you need to talk about something that's bothering you. But what the canine guides have shown me is that the more time you spend in this space, you're holding that space, you're holding that energy. And when you do that, you cannot heal it because you're invested in it. Okay. And what the canine guides showed me, and what they do with my clients, is sometimes they'll tell them where their healing comes from, where the trauma comes from. And even people that think that they don't have any trauma in this lifetime, I do have people that go through life on an even keel. Nothing ever happens to them. And they think, I have no trauma. I have nothing to heal from. I'm totally happy. But what I find with the canine guides is that they have past life trauma that's waiting for them, that needs to be unlocked and healed. But you don't need to know what it is specifically.
Really?
The only thing that is required is for you to be open and ready to heal it. That's the only requirement. You can just openly say, whatever it is I need to heal, let it happen. But the caveat is there cannot be any ounce of resistance to that. process or it won't work. So in my work with my clients using the canine spirit guides, we systematically go through the resistance. The talking that has to happen is for them to understand where they're resisting the process. And sometimes the guides will bring through, past life experiences or something that happened in this life that they need to understand to see, in order for them to see where they're resisting that healing. And that's the only time they'll share that with them. And they'll just, as long as you are willing, it can just be lifted from you. You don't have to know what it is specifically. You don't have to understand it. And this is, they tell everybody all the time that this is advanced healing technology, because we haven't been ready to hear it or to receive it until now. Because we were trapped in this belief that healing was hard, and you hear it all the time. Well, it just takes time. Yeah. Anytime someone says that, I negate it. No,
people they spend their whole life. Yes. And I don't see any of them getting any happy. I mean, I've worked in the industry a long time. I mean, I know this doesn't make me a popular person, but
what, you're a caregiver. You've worked in the nursing industry for a long time. So sometimes we tell people what they don't want to hear. As a physical therapist, I had to do that a lot. Yeah. You develop a thick skin because you have to do what's right in the interest of the client or the patient. You have to do what's right. So sometimes they don't like hearing the truth. No different than working spiritually with people. They don't want to hear the truth. They just want things to be fixed. Well, we can do that. But we've got to get through the resistance and the beliefs that people have.
Well, that makes sense. And even with the healthcare, they may not want to hear the truth, but they may be at the point where they're tired of what's impeding living a physically comfortable life, that they're willing to let go and accept.
Yes. So you have to get to a point in your life where you're ready to surrender, where you're ready to lay belly up, all of your guts revealed, completely splayed. And that's what my book was about. That book, I was completely splayed open for the whole world to see. I didn't hide anything, didn't hold anything back. When you get to that point in your suffering that you're ready to surrender, then it can happen like that. And that's what most of our conflict here on the planet is all about, is the fact that we haven't gotten to the place where we're ready to be in that space, to totally surrender. And just, people say, give it to God. That's not a term I use, but I will surrender to my higher purpose, my higher self. I will surrender to the healing that the canine guides have to offer. It might be healing that you're getting somewhere else, a different avenue. It doesn't matter, because we have so many flavors, so many choices right now with something that will resonate with you, that will provide you that healing. So it's an exciting time. The world is changing. Time. Yeah. Humanity is shifting into a higher plane.
I agree. Like, how cool is it to be here at this time? So on my website, I have a headline that says, "The old rules no longer apply." And I look at it, and it has a lot of meaning to me. And I thought, it'd be really interesting to hear how other people interpret it. Because, if you are a person who may have known me for a long time, you could say, oh, that's just Dr. Sandra Marie being her rebel self again. But it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with what we just talked about. Like, this is a whole new paradigm. Even when it comes to the old way of manifesting, everything is changing. Everything's elevating, and it's to make life more joyful and blissful and easier for us. And we're so gifted to be here.
One question I have for you is, if you were able to go back in time and reassure yourself as a beginner, what would you say? What insight would you give yourself from now, if you're able to go back then, that would make it all better?
Well, in some ways I'll say it's different just because of the availability of information now from back then. But the one thing I would say, Heather Leigh, honestly, is trust your intuition. If you're being nudged or pulled, don't think that you're crazy. Take a chance and be curious. But on top of being curious, put some action to it. And it's going to take you down a whole different path. I mean, I think, when I decided to move to the Middle East, when I was 59, living in a city I had lived in same neighborhood my whole life, and everyone was like, wait, you're doing what? And then being all over the world and where it's taken me. So when I think about it, I know you're 2 years, so we'll say 5-6 years into this. I would say, all who wander are not lost. Yeah. Wandering is just fine. I personally think being flawed is one of our greatest strengths. So embrace it.
Yeah.
And, if it's on your mind or poking you or something grabs your attention, pay attention to what's grabbing your attention. Pay attention to what's nudging you. And if you don't action it in that moment, pay attention to it, because there's a reason that's happening. So we can get into coincidences. I'll say not. Like, there's so many synchronicities in life. Yeah. And for me, I notice them retrospectively, but a lot of people I know notice them clearly in the moment.
Yeah.
And so their aha moments come a lot quicker than mine do. Just pay attention to those. Wow, that's interesting that just happened. Oh, that's what a coincidence. Where did that come from? Oh, I was just thinking about this and now this popped up. Pay attention to that.
Yeah. I learned in the beginning of my journey that the measure of intelligence is not what you can regurgitate. It's not in what you can hold and always have an answer to. It's the amount of curiosity you hold and your ability to ask questions. That is intelligence. So when I work on a spiritual level, all I do is ask questions. I don't go into my spiritual experience and say, I want this, I want that. I ask questions. What do I need? Where am I going? And same for my clients. What does this client need to know right here at this moment to help them connect to their path, to connect deeper with their own soul? So it's all about that open curiosity and understanding that we don't know it all. I mean, humanity is not an advanced race. If we want to go there, we are like the furthest from an advanced race of all the races I work with. So when you become humble that way and you really embrace it and you're like, oh, wow, maybe what I have been told my whole life and maybe what I've always believed might not be true. Just maybe, I mean, I think if you go into it that open, then you're going to get more out of it.
Yeah, I would agree. The other thing I would say, Heather Leigh, is to pay attention to the distractions in your life. So those distractions, I strongly encourage people to turn the TV off.
Social media.
Let go of drama. Let go of drama in your personal life and the political life and the global happenings. But when you step away from that, what I've come to realize is it's not letting go of just that physical distraction, but like when you're letting go of drama and stuff, you have to let it go in your mind also.
Yes.
So I can step away from something, but my perseverating thoughts keep me in it. So it's figuring out, and I made it harder, I think, than it needs to be. And honestly, it's an ongoing lesson for me, is letting go of the distractions in your mind also. And the more that you step away from the physical, the more it's not in your mind. Because really, at the end of the day, none of that is ours to own. That's all someone else's to own.
Yeah. And it can be really tricky learning to identify a distraction. That takes some practice.
It does.
I had to have my mentor share with me, well, that's a distraction. That's resistance. That has nothing to do with that person. It has everything to do with you. So, we don't want to hear that stuff. Dr. Sandra, it's been amazing talking to you as always. I just love any time we get to spend together in each other's energy. It's magnificent.
Same to you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I always enjoy our conversations, Heather Leigh.
Oh, great. Me too. We'll have to do another podcast at some point.
Definitely. It's coming.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. And be sure and check out Sandra Marie's webpage. All right. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, Dr. Sandra.
Thank you.
And I will see everybody next week with a new podcast.